We all know that Formula One drivers are some of the highest earners in the sport, with them showing off their fancy cars, watches, and even clothing if you're Lewis Hamilton. Many people saying this is undeserved, as all they do is drive cars for over 20 weekends a year, right? Well, you are wrong. They do much more than that, and they put their lives on the line week in and week out. They don't just drive and leave the circuit after every race. They have to do a lot of going through data, driving the simulator when they're not racing. They have to do a lot of media duties, and of course they have to travel around the world all the time. Of course, being a Formula One driver is not the hardest job in the world, and every driver loves their job, but their salaries are warranted on many things, such as how good the driver is, the team that they drive for, and some other factors that we'll get into. Before we get into how much each driver on the grid earns, leave a comment and also have a guess about how much the highest earning driver gets per year. Now, let's get on to it. Before we get into each driver's yearly salary, this information may not be fully accurate, but this is based on some sources online, and we'll be talking about how much each driver currently earns in 2022 only. If they have signed a contract with another team for future seasons, we will not be talking about that. Each driver has different clauses in their contract, such as maybe they get more money if they win a race, but overall, these are just the base salary a driver will get every single year as it stands. We'll be going from the lowest earning driver to the highest earning driver, so let's take a deep dive into how much each driver gets from their teams every single year. First off, we have the Japanese driver for AlphaTauri in Yuki Tsunoda, who is driving his second year in the sport. Yuki earns around about $675,000 a year for his current contract, which will end at the end of 2023 after he signed a contract extension earlier this year. Of course, Helmut Marko and Red Bull are pretty much on a year-by-year basis with Yuki, and they have done this for several years, as they only want to build drivers that will eventually be ready for the second Red Bull seat alongside Max Verstappen if they are doing good enough. Next, we have a driver that will be leaving us and possibly joining IndyCar for 2023 in Nicholas Latifi. He is on a $1 million a year contract that was due to end this season, but of course the team decided on going against extending this contract after his poor performances for the majority of the season. Latifi came to Williams as a pay driver, so his salary does not really matter, as he was brought in to bring money to the team when they needed it the most. Next, we have a rookie for 2022 in Zhou Guanyu, who has performed quite well and would have had a lot more points if he had a more reliable car. Zhou is also on $1 million a year contract as it stands, and it was due to end at the end of the season, but Alfa Romeo announced they would extend his contract for 2023. Zhou was seen as a paid driver by a lot of people, but has come into the team and has performed quite well with the team he has been given. Mick Schumacher is the next driver, and he is also on $1 million a year contract with Haas. Of course, there is a lot of talk around young Mick on if he will leave the team after this season, so he may get a pay rise if he does extend his current contract with Haas. Next up, we have Alex Albon, who is driving for Williams, and his 2022 salary is set to be $2 million. But he announced earlier in the summer that he will be signing a contract until at least 2024, and he may have got a pay rise for coming years due to his good performances with the team this year. Next, we have a big jump, but a surprise entry in George Russell for Mercedes, who's on $5 million per year multi-deal with the team. Of course, George may get a pay rise due to his good performances this season, but Mercedes are sensible and not putting a huge salary on him for his first season with the team. Another driver that's on $5 million a year, and that is Alpine driver Esteban Ocon. Ocon has become one of the most consistent and underrated drivers on the grid, so this $5 million a year contract, which is set to end in 2024, is very much deserved. On to a driver who will be pairing with Esteban Ocon in 2023, and that is Pierre Gasly, who for 2022 is on a $5 million a year contract, which will end of course this season with AlphaTauri. It is unknown what Gasly's salary is with Alpine, but he's set to have signed a multi-year deal. Next, we have a Haas driver in Kevin Magnussen, who earns much more than his teammate, and his salary is $6 million a year. Kevin made his comeback into the sport with him signing a multi-year deal with Haas weeks before the first race in Bahrain. A veteran and a driver who's performed very well this season in Sergio Perez earns $6 million a year with Red Bull, with his contract set to end at the end of 2024 season. This may of course get a rise with how well he has performed this season and the team leading them into the Constructors' Championship. Next up on the list, who is earning an eye-watering $10 million, is Carlos Sainz for Ferrari. Carlos has had an up and down year. Is this salary warranted? Let us know. But when you drive for Ferrari, you are set for a good payday each year. Lance Stroll is next, and he earns $10 million a year with a pretty much lifetime contract. When his dad in Lawrence Stroll owns the team, he can ask for whatever he wants and he will get it. So this contract is not really surprising at all. Also on $10 million a year is Valtteri Bottas for Alfa Romeo, who signed a multi-year deal which started this year. Alfa Romeo and Bottas had an unbelievable start to the season, but the car has dropped off. But Bottas, bringing a lot of experience to the team, is a fair salary. Next, we have the Ferrari driver in Charles Leclerc, who's on $12 million a year contract that ends in 2024, showing the belief that Ferrari have in him. Leclerc and Ferrari had the great start of the season, but Red Bull have just been the better team really. Daniel Ricciardo, who was on $15 million a year, whose contract was due to end in 2023, but was mutually terminated by McLaren. He is now without a drive for 2023 and will more than likely take a reserve driver role, but still got a nice payout from when his contract was terminated. Daniel's old teammate, who is retiring at the end of the season, Sebastian Vettel, was on a $15 million a year deal, which of course is a lot, but Sebastian deserves a lot of money of how good his career has been. Now, we are into the top four, and the first driver is young British McLaren driver in LANDO, NORRIS, who is on $20 million a year contract, which ends in 2025 after he signed an extension earlier this year. There have been a lot of talks between Red Bull and McLaren, but they will have to pay a lot to get Lando out of his contract. Another driver who's on a $20 million a year contract, and that is two-time world champion Fernando Alonso. Of course, this contract will end after this season with him joining Aston Martin on a multi-year deal next season, but this contract was probably a big reason why Alonso came back to the sport. Now, on to the two best drivers on the grid and the two highest paid. And the first one is Max Verstappen, who is the current world champion and is on $25 million a year on a contract that does not end until 2028. So he is locked into Red Bull for a long time with a very good payday, to say the least. Finally, we have the seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, who is on, drum roll please, $40 million a year, with his contract ending in 2023. However, Hamilton has said on several occasions that he will continue for many years, with him set to have contract talks with the team after the final race in Abu Dhabi. Of course, if you want one of the best drivers on your team, you will have to pay the big buck, and this is exactly what Mercedes has done. Overall, it's pretty fair to say that Formula 1 drivers are paid a lot of money for what they do. Who has the most surprising salary? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching this video, and make sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button for even more Formula 1 content.